The evening seemed ordinary when Martin walked toward the long dining table in his son's house. The warm lights, the smell of roasted chicken, and the soft music gave the room a comfortable glow. It looked like one of those peaceful family dinners, where everyone smiled and talked about their week, but the truth was that the warmth in the room only lived on the surface. Martin's daughter-in-law, Eliza, had been acting distant for months. Not rude, just cold, like she wanted to keep some invisible wall between them. Martin never took it personally. He was in his late 60s now. He had lived long enough to know that everyone fought battles they didn't always talk about. Still, it hurt sometimes, especially on days like this, when all he wanted was to feel close to his family. Martin walked around the table, looking for his seat. He moved toward the spot between Eliza and his son, David, but before he could pull out the chair, Eliza suddenly looked up, her voice sharp enough to cut through the chatter. "Not here." The room fell silent for a second. David looked confused. The grandchildren looked up from their plates. Martin paused, his hands still on the chair. Eliza's tone wasn't loud, just cold, almost rehearsed. "Please, sit somewhere else." Martin felt the sting. Not embarrassment, just a quiet pain that settled deep in the chest. He didn't want to cause a scene. He didn't want the kids to feel tension, so he forced a gentle smile. "Of course," he said softly. He searched for another seat. Every chair around the table was taken, except one right next to the family lawyer, Mr. Green, who had been invited by David for reasons Martin didn't fully understand yet. It felt unusual, but Martin didn't question it. He simply walked over and sat beside the lawyer with a kind nod. "Good evening, Martin," Mr. Green said with a polite smile. Martin smiled back, but inside, he felt a small storm brewing. Why did Eliza not want him next to her? Had he done something wrong? Was she upset? Or was something else going on that he didn't know about? As the dinner carried on, conversation returned slowly, but something in the air had changed. A strange heaviness hovered around the table. Even the children sensed it. Martin kept quiet. He watched. He listened. Something felt off, very off. Every few minutes, Eliza glanced toward him. Not with anger, not with fear, but with discomfort, nervousness, maybe. As if she was hiding something. Martin wasn't a man who jumped to conclusions. He had lived long enough to know that truth usually arrived slowly, like a shadow crawling across the floor before showing its full shape. But tonight, truth was not crawling. It was racing. 40 minutes into dinner, as dessert was being served, David finally cleared his throat. He looked unsettled. His hands trembled slightly as he pushed his spoon aside. "I think we need to talk," he said. Eliza stiffened immediately. The lawyer looked toward Martin, then toward David. The room fell quiet again. The kind of quiet that fills a space before life changes forever. Martin sat still, his heart beating a little faster. He didn't know what was coming. He only knew one thing. Whatever truth was about to hit this table, it was big enough that someone didn't want him sitting close when it arrived. Martin straightened in his chair, unsure of what to expect. David rarely looked this tense, unless the matter was serious. The children were told to go play in the living room, and their footsteps faded down the hallway. As soon as they were out of sight, silence took over the room again. Eliza kept her arms crossed. Her chest moved quickly, as if every breath felt heavy. She did not look at Martin, not even once. David licked his lips, trying to gather his words. "Dad, I didn't want to bring this up tonight," he began. "But things have reached a point where we can't ignore it anymore." Martin felt his stomach tighten. David looked toward the lawyer, who gave a slow, confirming nod. "I thought dinner with everyone here would help," David continued softly. "But it seems the tension is already here." Martin wasn't upset, only curious. "What tension, son?" Eliza finally spoke for the first time since telling him not to sit beside her. "It's not tension. It's the truth. And you need to accept it." Martin blinked slowly. "Accept what, Eliza?" But Eliza didn't answer. She only clasped her hands together tightly, eyes fixed on the table. David sighed, leaning forward and rubbing his forehead. "Dad, Eliza thinks you're hiding something from us." Martin's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Hiding me?" "Yes," David said quietly. "She believes you're keeping family matters from us. Important ones." Martin couldn't help but let out a breath of disbelief. He looked at Eliza calmly. "If there's something you think I hid, you can ask me directly. I've always been honest with you." Eliza bit her lip. Her voice wavered for the first time. "That's the problem," she murmured. "I'm not sure anymore." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should show him the documents." Martin's heart skipped. "Documents?" he repeated. "What documents?" Mr. Green opened a brown envelope that had been beside him the entire dinner. He placed a stack of papers gently on the table. The edges were sharp. The pages looked official. Martin swallowed. David looked down, unable to meet his father's eyes. These were found in a safe deposit box after Mum passed away. Martin froze. The memory of his late wife, Clara, swept through him, her smile, her gentle wisdom, the way she always kept receipts and letters organized. He had never opened her personal safe deposit box. He thought maybe she kept personal keepsakes or old family photos. He never imagined documents hidden from the family. "What's in there?" Martin whispered. Eliza answered before anyone else. "Everything you've been keeping from us," she said. "About the house. About the savings. About the land Mum inherited. About who actually owns what." Martin looked stunned. "Eliza," he said softly, "I didn't keep anything from you. I didn't even know these existed." Her eyes flashed with anger. "That's what you say, Martin, but I don't believe you anymore." David quietly slid one of the papers toward Martin. "Dad, it says the land upstate wasn't just Mum's. It was put under your name alone. Years ago." Martin looked down at the page, his heart pounded. He did recognize the signature, his own, but he didn't recognize the document itself. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" The lawyer leaned closer. "That's what we need to discuss, because the timing, the signatures, and the ownership details, none of it fully makes sense." Martin felt his breath catch. If he didn't sign this document knowingly, who did? Or worse, why would someone want to make it look like he did? Eliza's voice trembled. "See? This is why I didn't want you sitting next to me." Martin looked up, his voice steady but hurting. "Eliza, I think you're blaming the wrong person." Before anyone could speak again, the lawyer slowly tapped the papers. "Everyone, I think we're dealing with something much more complicated here." The truth was no longer cracking, it was breaking wide open. Martin's hands rested on the edge of the table. He wasn't shaking, but his chest felt tight. The papers in front of him looked like they belonged in someone else's life. Someone dishonest. Someone with secrets. But he wasn't that man. He never had been. Mr. Green, the family's lawyer for over 15 years, adjusted his glasses and looked at each person at the table. David, Eliza, and then Martin. "I think we should walk through this slowly," he said calmly. David nodded. Eliza crossed her arms again, but her eyes softened a little, as if she wasn't fully convinced of her own anger anymore. The lawyer took the top document. "This is a property transfer dated 12 years ago," he began. "It lists the upstate land Clarist inheritance from her parents as being moved into Martin's name alone." Martin leaned in, staring at the signature. "I signed things for the farm back then, but I never saw this paper." The lawyer gave a small nod. "I remember Clara bringing me documents around that time. But this one, I didn't prepare it." Everyone froze. "You didn't?" David asked. "No," the lawyer said. "And that is why this concerns me." Eliza looked torn, still upset, but no longer certain Martin was the villain in her story. "Are you saying the document is fake?" she asked quietly. "Not necessarily fake," Mr. Green replied. "But something about it didn't follow the usual process." He pointed to the signature line. "The ink and pressure match Martin's real signature from around that year, but the formatting is unusual. This page wasn't printed from my office, and the witness signatures seem unfamiliar." David frowned. "Then who made it?" The lawyer exhaled slowly, choosing his words carefully. It could have been done by Clara herself. Martin felt the breath leave his body. Clara, his wife. The woman he trusted with everything. No, he whispered. She wouldn't hide something from me. David looked at him gently. Dad, sometimes Mum made decisions quietly. Remember the savings account she opened for the kids without telling us? She only said it later. Yes, Martin admitted, but that wasn't a matter of hiding. She wanted to surprise them. Eliza leaned forward, her voice softer than before. Maybe this was another surprise gone wrong. Martin shook his head. This doesn't feel like her, Mr. Green agreed. Clara was very organized. If she intended to transfer property, she would have done it properly through me. Eliza looked at the lawyer. Then who could have taken her signature? The room went silent. There were only a few people who ever had access to Clara's papers, and all of them were sitting right here. The lawyer broke the silence. There's something else. He reached into his folder and pulled out a second sheet. Martin noticed the edges were older, yellowed from time, almost fragile. This was found with the document in the safe deposit box. He placed it on the table. It was a letter, written in Clara's handwriting. Martin's heart jumped. He knew that handwriting anywhere, the soft curls, the slanted strokes, the gentle loops at the end of each word. David grabbed the letter before Martin could read it. Eliza whispered. David unfolded it slowly. His eyes moved across the page, and with each line, his expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to shock. He looked up at Martin. Dad, this letter says the land was supposed to be shared between all of us. You included. Mum wrote that she didn't want anyone fighting over it. Martin nodded slowly. That sounds like her. David continued reading. It also says she was thinking of updating the papers but never got the chance. Eliza leaned closer, so she knew something was wrong with the paperwork. David finished the last line and went pale. He didn't read it aloud, but he slowly handed the letter to the lawyer. Mr. Green scanned it, his face tightening. Martin couldn't wait anymore. What does it say? The lawyer looked at him, serious and gentle. Clara wrote that she suspected someone had taken advantage of her trust, that someone might have altered documents without her noticing. Martin felt his entire body freeze. Eliza whispered, Who? The lawyer turned the paper toward Martin and tapped Clara's final handwritten note, a single line, a name. Martin's heart stopped. David's jaw tightened. Eliza's eyes widened in complete shock. The name written on the letter was someone none of them expected, someone both inside the family and trusted by all of them. Martin stared at the letter as if time had stopped. His wife's handwriting was clear, even after all the years. The name written there felt like a punch to the chest. Not because it was a stranger, not because it was an enemy, but because it was someone he trusted, someone he loved, David, his own son. Martin's breath caught as he looked up slowly. David couldn't lift his eyes. His shoulders were stiff, his fingers curled under the table, and shame clouded every line of his face. Eliza's reaction was louder. David, she said, her voice cracking. Why would your name be there? David swallowed hard. His voice was small when it finally came out. I don't know. It didn't sound like a lie. It sounded like a man who didn't know whether to defend himself or break down completely. Martin felt no anger, only confusion. His son, the boy he raised to be honest and gentle, the man who always took Clara's side, who was careful with money and thoughtful with every decision, it didn't make sense. Mr. Green folded the letter gently. We must be careful with assumptions. The letter and the document are from the same time period, but that doesn't prove wrongdoing. Eliza wasn't satisfied. Then why would Clara write his name? She didn't write anyone else's. David took a shaky breath. I swear, I never touched Mum's papers. I didn't sign anything for that land. I didn't change anything. Martin studied his son's face. The pain there didn't look fake, but the room was thick with tension. Now like a rope pulled to tight. Eliza shook her head. Why didn't you say anything when your dad was being blamed tonight? David looked up hurt. Elisa, I didn't know Mum wrote that letter, and I didn't think Dad hid anything. I just thought, maybe there was confusion. Maybe Mum did something we didn't understand. Martin's heart softened. David wasn't defensive. He was scared. Mr. Green cleared his throat. David, do you remember helping Clara sort any documents around that time? David hesitated. Only once. She asked me to carry a stack of papers from the car. But I didn't open any. I left them on her desk. Eliza frowned. And the land paperwork was in that stack. I don't know. David rubbed his forehead. Mum asked me not to lose one specific envelope, the brown one. I gave it to her, unopened. Martin looked at the lawyer. Could that be the envelope that held the land papers? Possibly, Mr. Green said. If someone swapped or inserted something into that stack before Clara secured them, she may have noticed later. That could explain the caution in her letter. Eliza exhaled sharply. So, someone else might have done this. The lawyer nodded. Very likely. David looked relieved, but the relief was mixed with guilt that his name caused this storm. Martin finally placed a steady hand over David's son. He said softly, I trust you. David's eyes glistened instantly. Dad, I would never betray you or Mum. Martin smiled gently. I know. For a moment, the tension eased. The room felt human, again scared, emotional, fragile, but human. But the peace didn't last. Eliza bit her lip. Mr. Green, if David didn't alter the documents, and Martin didn't, and Clara didn't, then who could? The lawyer looked thoughtful. There are two other possibilities, he said. Someone at the notary, or someone who had temporary access to the house. Eliza stiffened. David froze. Martin's eyes narrowed. Someone had access to the house 12 years ago. Someone who had a spare key. Someone who often helped Clara with errands when David was busy. Martin whispered the name before anyone else. Could Eliza's brother? Eliza's face went pale immediately. Her brother, Stephen, had been around a lot back then, helping with repairs, moving boxes, running small errands for Clara when Martin was out of town for work. He had access, he had opportunity, and he had struggled financially for years. No, Eliza whispered. Stephen wouldn't. He couldn't. But her voice trembled. The doubt was there. And once doubt enters a room, it fills the corners like smoke. Mr. Green spoke carefully. Eliza, this doesn't mean he did anything. But if we follow the chain of access, he is the only person outside this family who had such open entry to the documents. Eliza shook her head, covering her mouth with her hands. Tears threatened her eyes. David reached to comfort her, but she pulled away. She wasn't angry at him now. She was overwhelmed. Martin felt the weight of everything pressing on him. Someone they trusted, someone who moved freely through their home, might have tried to quietly change the future of the family. And Clara had discovered it. But she never got the chance to fix it. Martin exhaled slowly. Mr. Green, he said, voice steady. What do we do next? The lawyer looked at him with a calm seriousness. We verify the documents. We check signatures. We follow every trail. The truth is there, Martin. We just need to reach it. Eliza wiped her tears and whispered one question. Will the truth hurt us? The lawyer paused, then he whispered, truth rarely arrives peacefully. The room felt heavier than before. The dinner plates were untouched now, the candles burned low, and the sweet smell of desert had faded into the background. No one cared about food anymore. All that mattered was the truth, real truth, not suspicion, not guesses. Eliza sat silently, her hands pressed together in her lap. David leaned back in his chair, confused and exhausted. Martin watched the lawyer calmly. Even though his heart felt unsteady, Mr. Green placed the documents back into the envelope. There's one detail, he said. That may give us the answer. Everyone looked up. The handwriting expert I contacted earlier today sent me a message this afternoon, he continued. I didn't check it during dinner because I wanted us all to see the results. Together, Martin's pulse quickened. He compared the questionable signature on the land paper with real ones from Martin and Clara. David leaned forward, and The lawyer took a slow breath. The signature belongs to neither. Eliza's eyes widened. Neither? Then, whose signature is it? The lawyer opened his phone and slid it onto the table. The handwriting belongs to someone who tried to imitate Martin's style. Someone familiar with the way he signs. Someone who had watched him sign papers before. Martin felt a cold wave move through him. Only one person outside the family had ever done that. Eliza closed her eyes in dread. Stephen, she whispered. Mr. Green nodded. Yes. The expert believes the signature was forged by Eliza's brother. A quiet gasp came from Eliza's lips, and tears immediately filled her eyes. She didn't cry loudly, she cried silently, the kind of pain that sits deep in the chest. David reached out, this time gently, and she let him hold her hand. Martin's heart softened. Eliza, none of this is your fault. She shook her head. I encouraged him to spend time here. I trusted him. I thought he was helping us. Martin placed a comforting hand on hers. You trusted your family. That is never wrong. The lawyer continued gently. Clara must have found inconsistencies later. She probably wrote the letter quietly because she didn't want to cause tension or make false accusations. She placed it in the safe deposit box for a reason. David nodded slowly. She wanted us to find the truth when the time was right. Martin's voice became soft and emotional. She wanted us to stay together strong even if something painful surfaced. The three of them sat quietly, connected by the same heartbreak, the same truth, and the same relief. Eliza wiped her tears carefully. I'm so sorry for the way I spoke to you earlier. When I told you not to sit next to me, a gentle smile returned to Martin's face. I'm not angry, dear. You acted on fear, not hate. All of us did. David exhaled deeply, a mix of exhaustion and relief. So, what do we do about Stephen? Mr. Green answered clearly. We won't assume guilt until the investigation confirms everything, but we will handle this with honesty and calm. For now, the document is invalid. The property is shared legally, just as Clara intended. Eliza seemed relieved, but the worry about her brother remained in her eyes. Martin reached across the table and squeezed her hand gently. You're part of this family, he said. No matter what Stephen did, we will not let this break us. That was the moment the room finally breathed again. Later that night, after the table was cleared and the children had gone to sleep, Martin stood by the window with David. The moonlight fell across the backyard, and the evening breeze brushed softly against the glass. David spoke quietly. Dad, I know today was hard for you. Martin nodded. Hard for all of us. But you stayed calm, David continued, even when we doubted you. Martin smiled faintly. That's what a family is for, son. We go through storms together. We don't walk away. David's eyes softened. I want to be the kind of father you were to me. Martin put a hand on his shoulder. You already are. Behind them, Eliza approached slowly. Her face looked tired, but her eyes were sincere. Martin, she said. Can I say something? He turned toward her kindly. I misjudged you, she whispered, and I hurt you without giving you a chance. You didn't deserve that. Martin stepped closer, placing a warm hand over hers. Eliza, you're my daughter-in-law. My family. You never have to fear me. We will talk through things, not fight through them. A tear rolled down her cheek, but this one wasn't painful, it was a release. Thank you, she whispered. David wrapped an arm around her shoulders. We're going to be okay, he said softly. Martin nodded. We will. Clara wanted that. And tonight, we honored her. The lawyer stepped forward with a final gentle smile. Everything is sorted for now. We'll continue tomorrow, but please rest tonight. You've earned it. They all shared a long breath. Not victory. Not celebration. Just peace. A quiet, healing peace. As Martin walked out of the house later, he looked back at the doorway. Warm light spilled from inside, and laughter from the kids drifted through the hall. He smiled. Tonight, truth hit the table, and instead of breaking the family, it made them stronger.